Hey everybody, this is Joe. Thank you for watching my Giga-Texas construction update video.
Well, hey everybody, back at Giga-Texas again today. I got a lot of your feedback. I understand that the volume and the use of the music together wasn't helpful, so I'm going to try to improve that on today's video. So thank you very much for all of the inputs. But out here at Giga-Texas on this Friday, the 8th of July, is amazing as far as how busy it is. And we're going to tour around a lot of the site, and I will do another narration as we go. We'll start off on the south end where we see some of the Model Ys being produced and put into a slightly different location rather than just the transport area. And I did not see any transports, at least while I was here this morning. But I did get a chance to see a little bit of the sunrise, and I was hoping to be able to look inside the stamping building. But unfortunately it was a little bit too light by the time I arrived. But anyway, we take a look at the Model Ys on the south end. We look at the steel assembly area as well, and that's where they fabricate a lot of the materials. And then much of it actually goes inside the building at that stamping extension area on the south end where they're doing a lot of work. And I noticed that there were some concrete trucks entering that area as well. Then we'll look at the west side of the General Assembly along that entire length of the building where we see more work finishing up replacement of the asphalt on the roads. More concrete has been poured just north of the main entrance area in that new apron area that they've been working on. And then at the northwest corner, we also take a look at more of the road work and the concrete replacement that is going on. Up on the roof, we look at the Tesla T and how they are expanding the solar panel installation to other areas of the roof now. And as many of you know, with some of the renderings that we've seen from Tesla, the entire roof will be installed with solar panels at some point, and it looks like they're starting on that process on the north end. We then take a look over at the battery cathode facility, and we see the steel erection is just continuing to go at an amazing pace. It's probably now 45 to 50% complete for the steel skeleton, and they're finishing up some work on the north end with the footings as well. I look at the orientation trailers on the north end. There was a viewer that asked me to take a look at those, so I show you where those are located. And again, this is where new employees first come when they arrive at Giga-Texas before they start working. We then go up to the North Pond old batch plant area, which is now the construction zone for the electrical substation. And we see a lot more grading work and more dirt infill on the main grade as well. And finally, we come back and take a look at the north end where we see some very interesting deliveries, a lot of activity, especially at the paint shop and the plastics manufacturing area. And as you can see by this photo here, right as I was finishing up the drone flight, this huge piece of machinery in this white plastic wrap arrived. And I'm not sure exactly what it is for, but it arrived at the north end near the plastics manufacturing area. So anyway, I hope that this video with the volume and the music is better modulated and is more conducive to understanding what I'm saying. And again, I'm trying very hard to do a different approach, and I hope that you appreciate this. Again, it's Friday. Have a great weekend coming up, and I will see you sometime next week. Take care.
My drones are ready and raring to go. Let's go flying over Giga-Texas. Well, as you can see, we're on the west side of the highway over at the material storage area. It's a beautiful sunrise over Giga-Texas. But I thought I would start on this side just to give you a close-up view of a lot of the activity and the materials that are being stored over here. And they're constantly moving back and forth between the main site and this area. What I'm showing you here, this is something new. You can see these sort of triangular, almost Cybertruck-ish shaped objects. These are light posts bases, and they were over on the roadway west of the Giga-Texas's General Assembly structure. They were cut out, moved over here. It looks like they're going to be reused at some point. This is a little bit different than what we've seen before. Also pay attention right here, you see these white wrapped items underneath this covered area. We're going to see one of them moved over to the paint shop plastics area as we talked in the video intro a little bit earlier. Again, not sure exactly what these are for, but they're listed as angle parts, and they're going to the north end of the building. But here you can see quite a bit more of the materials. You can see some windows there. Those windows are for the east side secondary entrance. You can also see here these red and black items. This is another temporary ramp that we should see installed at the factory at some point. But anyway, this is a view of the west side material storage area. Last year, Austin Business Journal reported this would be a Starlink dish manufacturing plant at some point. I haven't heard anything in over a year, so I don't know if that has changed, but we'll have to keep monitoring that. All right, we're looking back at Giga-Texas. Now we're going to move over to the northwest corner and fly down towards the south and see the activity that's going on here. As you can see, more work on the apron area for the concrete replacement. You can see rebar has been installed. You can see the road work is being prepared for more concrete here as well. And also you can kind of see that trench down the middle, and you'll see it all along the roadway. That's where those concrete bases for the light posts were taken out and may be replaced. I'm also showing you over here, you can see these pipes along the berm. As I mentioned in the previous video, the groundskeeper that waters all of the plants at Giga-Texas told me that originally there was going to be sprinkler systems all along here and on the north end where all the plants are, but that was not done at the time. And they're using now these pipes to water the area. But we should see trenching pretty soon, and they're going to install a sprinkler system to manage the watering. Right now they take multiple trucks and about 80,000 gallons of water every day or so, and it's hand watered by the groundskeeper and his crew, and that's obviously not sustainable. So we'll see more sprinkler systems. Here you can see that trench I mentioned in the middle of the road. This is where those light post base were taken out, and we may see them replaced or reconstructed. This area here is a new concrete apron area that has just been poured. You can see that there's some work flattening out the concrete, and they're preparing another section. I'm showing you these workers here because what I think that they're doing is they're marking the walls for installation of more loading bays. On the east side, we're going to see actual loading bays have been cut into the walls. So I think it's similar to what we're going to see on this side of the building. Here you can see those helicopter devices that's used to float the concrete and get it as level as possible. We're passing that main entrance area. I tried to look into it for some photos, but just couldn't see a whole lot in there this morning. But here again, you can see down the middle of the road work where they're going to be putting the light bases or light post bases back in, and we saw those on the west side. Here you can see a lot of fans being used in these bays, trying to keep airflow going, and you can barely see inside this area. It looks like there's some pallets and some crates. It's very difficult for me to get the angle of the drone down low enough to see in, but that gives you a little bit of an idea of what is inside. So now we're passing towards the southwest corner of the building. You can see this is the last remaining section. They're working on some underground plumbing and manhole access points. Then we'll see this area rebarred in and more concrete pretty soon. And then I don't know what they're going to do further south of that, if they're going to wrap around the building or if they're just going to stop at that particular area. So now let's go ahead and move to the south material and steel storage area, and also where some fabrication of big parts are made as well. As I mentioned in the video intro, a lot of these steel parts are stored here temporarily and then either modified or picked back up and moved into the stamping extension structure on the south end of the building. And I'll show you that a little bit later. But right now this just gives you an idea of how much steel, the various different kinds of steel parts, And again, this platform that they're working on, and I'm not sure exactly again where this is going to be in the building, but I'll continue to monitor that as well. Now we're heading over towards the southeast side of the stamping structure. For some reason, they move a lot of the Model Ys over in this area, which is near that clearing area, and also right south of where some more solar panels and racking mounts are stored. Why they put the Model Ys over here, I'm not really sure, but this seems to be one of the staging areas before they move them over for shipping. Again, those are the solar panels just flying under the nose of the drone. And this is just a look around the side of stamping building. I did try to get here earlier in the morning to look inside this area because there's a lot of interesting details, but by the time I arrived, the sun was too close to the horizon. It was a little bit too bright, and I would get too many reflections on the window. So I wasn't able to do it again this day, but I'll try at some point in the future. But here, what we can see with these green wrapped items, and those two large doors, this is where a lot of the steel on the south end is moved. And you can also see with the Martin Marietta cement truck, they're pouring a lot of cement in this area. They've been doing some excavation work, somewhat reminiscent of what we saw in the stamping structure itself. So I'm not sure exactly what they're building. It's difficult to get the drone low enough to look inside, but you can see a lot of other materials that are waiting for installation on that south side as well. Moving over here to the supercharger station, they put these red tents in to help with the sun and just for the employee comfort. And I'm not sure what the permanent solution is going to be, but they'll do on something. And then these, of course, are the Cyber Rodeo vehicles passing right underneath the drone, and for some reason they are being kept outside on this end of the structure. Here you can see more Model Ys being produced and also stored on the western half of this loading platform area. On the eastern half here where you see it marked out, there's squares that hold about 30 vehicles, and then you can see the areas where the trailer trucks come in to pick them up. And a lot of trucks have been picking up Model Ys about the rate of about 100 or so a day, maybe a little bit more. It's kind of hard to tell. But today I did not see any trailers at the early morning, but later on as I was departing and traveling south on that major highway, I was able to see more carriers picking up vehicles. So I didn't get that on film. Sorry about that. But here we are in the southeast corner, approaching where the directional drilling area is. And I've had some Patreons provide me some links to a very good video on directional drilling, and I'm going to show you this image here in the upper right hand corner of the screen, and a link to the video, and I'll also put it in the video description so you can take a look at that. A lot of great information about how this directional drilling operation functions. So let's move further north along the east side of the stamping and to the body in white structure. And what I want to show you is some interesting developments just north of this temporary platform that you can see. And I'm specifically looking at this area where they're doing earthwork. And we've talked about this before. This is going to be a new loading ramp area, and they are preparing some of the underground piping and so forth prior to pouring the concrete. You can also see the retaining wall on the north side. But specifically what I want to show you is you can see 3 new cargo loading bays have been cut into the walls. And as we discussed on the west side of General Assembly, the crews were marking the walls to do the exact same thing. And what I think we're going to see is more of these bays cut into the rest of this wall, so that this area they're working on will be a loading bay, a new loading bay on this side. And what I want to show you here is directly ahead, you can see an existing loading bay that's was part of the original construction, but you can see that recessed ramp where the truck is. That's what that area that they're building. And you can see that there's several of these on this side of the building. It looks like they've decided to add it in. Now we're looking at that eastern secondary entrance area. It looks like they're working on the concrete at the base of that sort of V-shaped entrance area. So hopefully we'll see some more progress on this as well. Now we're looking at this new parking lot area. You can see the trenching. They're working on electrical conduit, and they've already pre-wired in most of these charging stations and the light pole bases. And they're doing all of this work ahead of the paving, which is a marked change from what they did on the large parking lot north, where they kind of paved and then they started doing the trenching and the installation of the electrical conduit. But as you can see where we just left, and then here where you can see ahead of the drone, a large charging area and some superchargers. Maybe this is where eventually we're going to see more of the new cars parked, but I'm not really sure. But here I'm going to spin around and we're going to take a look at all of these buses. Again, people have asked, why are there school buses? Why are these other white buses driving around? These are on-site shuttle buses that are used for the contractors that arrive here at these blue main entrance checkpoints. They go through this and make sure that they're authorized to be working here, and then many of them will go over and use the buses and get transported over to wherever they're going to be working. Now this is in that southeast corner of the parking lot area. Again, we talked about trenching. You can see here they are actively doing trenching, and with the pipes, the conduits in the trench, you can see that that progress is going on right now. What this is for is so they can continue to install the light pole bases and have lighting on this eastern parking lot area. They started in the north up where all of these vehicles are now, and they've been working to the south on this side. And this is the last main section before they finish all of the light pole bases and wiring, and then we'll see lighting installed for this parking lot area. But a lot of progress ongoing in this area, and hopefully we'll see this completed pretty soon. Here we are in the yard area and the eastern material storage area, and I've mentioned before, but I'll talk again. These trailers are used by Tesla for production parts for the vehicles. And they use these as sort of mobile storage areas, and it prevents them having to store a lot of parts inside the factory and being more efficient with their floor space. Now, I've been asked what type of lease or contract do they have with the truck owners for these trailers, since they're sitting here a lot. I don't know, but if any viewers happen to know, I would like to get that information. So you can put it in the comments. What I'm showing here is this is the paint sample walls. And these have been here for a while. We've been talking about possibly Tesla painting Giga-Texas and then using this color scheme. On the southeast corner, we've seen a little bit of that, but not sure when or if we'll see more. And here is some of the prefabricated superchargers. There's 16 of these here waiting for installation around the site. That white packaged item I think is related to the superchargers. It may be some of the electronic equipment is necessary to make those operational. So now as we pull back and fly along the east side, we're going to head over to the battery cathode plant, and you'll see quite a bit of progress. They are just moving at a completely insane speed right now with the steel assembly. And we talked on a previous video about timelines, and the target timeline that they're on is to get the steel skeleton structure done by the end of this month. And it looks like they are definitely on pace to do so. Now, as you can see, the structure is nearly 50% installed or assembled right now. And you can see the crane is in operation, assembling even more right now. And with all the steel laid out and all of the footings already completed and most of them cured, the rate of the process of assembling the steel should continue at a very fast pace. Down that central area, you can see those sort of diagonal shaped footings that have just recently put in. I'm not sure again why they are different than all the rest of them, but they look like they're nearly completed. And that sort of roadway that you see down the center of the building, that's for the crane to move back and forth and not affect any of the footings that they've already built. So on this side here, you can see a lot of the crews are meeting for their morning discussion prior to starting work. And we also see crews are busy with steel assembly on that sort of that northeast corner. We'll come back and take a look at that in a second. But I wanted to fly along the length of this building here on this side so you can get an idea of how it is progressing. You can see this white and blue packaging material. I think this is for roofing materials, but I'm not 100% sure, and I'm still trying to find out. But you can also see those white sort of planks, if you will, on top of the roof and on the two upper floors. Those are floor decking materials, if you will. Those will be laid out and then concrete poured on top to give you concrete floors. And then, of course, the roof will be completed as well. And you can also see that open area where I believe a bridge crane may be installed at some point. You can also see on the roof areas that reinforced section, and there's also some raised rectangular patterns. We'll see that a little bit closer in a bit, but that's probably where some HVAC materials or equipment will be installed. What they're doing here is, I call this sort of like the wind chime, if you will. The crane will pick up anywhere between 3 and 5 sections of steel, and then they'll move it over, and then they'll install one part and then lower it down, and the crews can reach the next piece, and then they just continue the installation from there. It's a very fast and a very efficient way of using the crane and getting multiple parts at once. So really impressive to see, and it just indicates how fast that they are moving. I thought I would fly up to the top of the crane a little bit, just give you a different perspective on the building, and then I'm going to fly over it, and while I do, I'm going to look down, and again, you can see how some of the roof area is sort of reinforced, and this rectangular pattern, I believe, is going to be either a vent for HVAC or maybe a mounting point for the HVAC is at some point in the future. But this is the Martin Marietta plant that was pre-existing, and these were the owners of the land before Tesla bought it. I think that they're in preparation now to eventually relocate that away from this site. But I wanted to stop over in this area here with these trailers. I had a viewer ask if I would get a closer view of this. This is where new employee orientation happens. So if you were hired to work at Giga-Texas, this is the first place that you would show up and go through the orientation, and then you would head over to the building to begin whatever work and training that you would need to work at Giga-Texas. But you can also see some of the other Tesla signs on those buildings. And over here is the components for the new permanent electrical substation, and it's going to be built just north of the temporary substation that you can see off to the left. And again, today the bulk of the work is continuing to expand the flat grade. They're removing the last remnants of the old plant that was here, and also the temporary water pond that was here. And they just continue to widen this area and generally making it more of a rectangular shape for the construction. And most of these light power poles, the small ones that you see, will eventually be moved. These are just temporary to help support the operation at the mobile batch plant that you can see coming up in front of the drone right now. This was one of the first, or the first construction items up at this part of the work site, and it's been making the bulk of all the concrete for Giga-Texas. Off in the distance you can see the highway and a lot of the material between the highway. That is Texas Department of Transportation materials, and that's part of the construction of that highway as well. So it's unrelated to Giga-Texas. But here I wanted to fly back to the graded area, and if you've seen previous videos several months ago with the shape of the pond, it was sort of triangular. Virtually all of that is now gone. and they continue to excavate this out to make this more rectangular, as you see, and they're also continuing to bring more dirt over into the center grade area. You can see that right in the middle. They've had surveyors out measuring the area. They also had some core drilling done, and I don't know what the results of that are, but it looks like they're adding more material, at least a little bit more, into this graded area. And here, as I fly up over the power lines that kind of run north-south down the middle of the construction zone, I'm going to show you this sort of triangular area where they're continuing to move dirt from the area off to the left, and they're continuing to fill this area up. I'm not exactly sure what this is for, or if they're going to make this up level with the rest of it, but I'm getting down low here because I want to show you how much lower it is compared to the rest of the land off to the left here. So there's still quite a bit of altitude that they would need to raise this up if that were the goal. So I'm going to continue to monitor that. We'll see what they do. Here's kind of a low altitude flight up back to the north end of the main factory. And I wanted to show you a lot of the activity that's going on near the north side of the paint shop. You can see all that green wrap materials that have recently arrived, more material arriving in this truck, and you can see additional material over to the left side near the casting machine angled wall. But they continue to get a lot of materials, platform material, and other production-related components, so they seem to be either expanding or at the very least completing construction of some of the interior of the paint shop. Again, this the second ramp is where the plastics materials are, and that's where we saw that large delivery right at the end as I was leaving, and I showed you the pictures at the intro of that white wrapped large machine that was being moved into the plastics. But I wanted to come up on the roof and show you again the HVAC ducting work that's going on in the northwest corner of the battery cell. People ask, why is it taking so long? I don't know, but they continue to progress. I have noticed at the Giga Berlin battery cell structure they have very similar ducting and enclosures as we just saw. Also here, this is the T on the solar panels for Tesla, and you can see they are now expanding away from just the basic letter. And as I showed at the intro, the entire roof will eventually be covered with solar panels, and this is part of that process. And if you look back at the intro, you can see what that will look like. But here you can see that they are definitely adding another large section next to the T to fill out this area of the roof, and it also appeared that they were providing some sort of wiring. Maybe they're connecting the solar panels to the inverters, and this is something new. Viewers have asked if this is connected to the factory yet to make power, and I do not know, but continue to monitor that as we go. So here's a pullback to show you the entire site, just to give an appreciation for where everything is located and how much we've flown the drone today. And I'll pull back so that you can see the battery cathode plant again and its relation to the rest of the facility. I hope that you appreciated and liked this Talk and Fly episode, and I hope that you got some good information out of it. Thank you and have a great weekend.